Nuremberg, Germany, once the shrine city of the Nazis, ravaged by the war Hitler launched on the world, ironically the scene of the final chapter of his Partners in Conquest. American units were on security guard outside the Palace of Justice during history's most momentous trial. For in the courtroom, the first of the Nuremberg trials was being held before the International Military Tribunal set up by an agreement signed between the U.S., Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. With their voices heard in 4 languages simultaneously, the justices delivered their judgments. Hess received a sentence of life imprisonment. Ribbentrop and Keitel sentenced to death by hanging. Thus it went. 12 defendants to die, 7 given prison terms, and 3 acquitted. Sharply in contrast with Nazi justice, the defendants received a fair trial for their war crimes.
My name's Rick Schuler. I'm the District Ranger on the Evanston and Mountain View Ranger District of the UNO Wasatch Cache National Forest. All the beetle kill on the North Slope. We started actually in the 80s with the first hit, mainly got the east side of the district, and then we proceeded to the big epidemic that started 12, 15 years ago with mountain pine beetle first, and then the spruce beetle came in behind that. And so we've taken a real hit. We're 80 to 90% dead on the North Slope on the Evanston Mountain View Ranger District right now.
Because of the pine beetle epidemic and because of all the dead trees on the ground and all the standing dead, we are likely to have an uncharacteristic fire in the area. As fire managers, we use the term fuel a lot. This just means vegetation, whether it's trees, shrubs, grasses. So when we say fuel loading is really high, it means that there's a lot of dead and down, or the shrubs are really close to each other. And this can create an uncharacteristic fire for the area.
So as far as effects to the forest and for the recreating public and the rest of our users, where people camp, where they park, where they recreate, where they do all the things they want to do out there has really been affected by that amount of dead fuel. So we have a lot of problems keeping our trails open. Most of our trail crews have to cut their way into an area and then cut their way back out because we get that much downfall now.
For years we've suppressed fire. The area needs it. The aspen need it, the wildlife need it. It's a key player in the ecosystem. It's a key player because it's natural. The trees get so overgrown, they die, and then there's no place for the wildlife to be. So it's nature's way of cleaning up the forest. And so it doesn't do it in one big burn. She'll do it in small patches, creating these mosaic openings. So we're coming back and replicating Mother Nature to try to get the area back to a healthy stand or a healthy ecosystem.
By doing these things, we want to mimic nature but speed it up a little bit. So we're opening up the trails, we're going to burn some of those areas off, reduce the hazardous fuel so it's not a hazard as people come out. They don't have to worry about crossing dead trees all the time, which is what they have to worry about now. Some areas you can't ride a horse through because it's so thick with dead and down. We have a lot of different kinds of things going on out there. We're cutting, thinning, hand piling out there along the trails and roadways. We're doing mastication in bigger areas where we've got regen and older standing pines and spruce out there. So we got a lot of different things happening, all in an effort to basically jumpstart Mother Nature in the restoration process of the area.
We're trying not to have the tops of trees touch each other. That way, if a fire were to get in the area, it wouldn't get into the tops of the trees and jump from tree to tree. So this gives fire managers options for when a fire does happen into the area. But the benefit of us doing a prescribed fire is that it's on our terms. And so we have more control. It's safer for our firefighters. It's safer for the public. We burn on days that the air quality is really good. And that is beneficial for the community, that way they're not having smoke settle in. Whereas if we get a wildfire in the area, we have no control on how much smoke is being put up. Whereas fire managers, we can mitigate that a lot easier on a prescribed fire. About 10-15 years ago, the mountain pine bark beetle came through this area. It killed a lot of the lodgepole and spruce in the area. And so if you're ever in the area, you will see that there's a ton of standing dead and a ton of dead on the ground.
We've got new growth coming in. On the north slope, lodgepole pine is not serotinous, which typically means you've got to have fire to open up the cones to spread the seeds over the area. On the north slope, we don't have that. Thus, we've got unbelievable regeneration that comes in naturally all the time. So much so that we have to do thinning to space out some of the trees. Otherwise, you may get little dog hair stands, what we call dog hair, because they're so close together. You may, as an example, get 180 to 190,000 stems per acre. So that's little bitty trees growing up right next to each other, and you got to thin them out so they release and they'll grow at somewhat of a normal pace.
We're reintroducing fire on the landscape. For years, we've suppressed fire, and fire is a natural thing in the area. The area needs it. The aspen need it, the wildlife need it. It's a key player in the ecosystem. So the prescribed fire is going to create mosaic areas. So basically we're going to punch some holes in all of this dead stuff.
This project will benefit wildlife in the area by increasing the understory diversity. That's the plants that grow on the ground that the mule deer, elk, and moose of the area eat. It will increase the production of those understory species as well. So in a smaller area, we will get more bang for our buck in terms of wildlife food.
So there's a variety of benefits from these type of projects. Overall watershed, health of the forest, increasing and enhancing the habitat for all wildlife. And what we're doing is taking the dense forest, the unhealthy forest, and creating a lot of openness underneath these stands. And so it's management, it's treatment, and it's of overall benefit to a variety of different benefactors.
There's more feed for the wildlife and more openings for them. These openings are really important so that they have a place to feed and they have a place that they can feel safe, that they're not running through thick timber where other wildlife could harm them.
The benefits to the watershed are that through increased forest health and the reduction of the fuels, the Forest Service will be able to mitigate uncharacteristic fire events in a safer and more efficient manner.
We are trying to manage the land the best we know how. We are also partnering with the DWR and the Mule Deer Foundation. These two groups are very involved in the benefit for wildlife. So as we work with these groups, we are trying to do the best practices for the land and for the wildlife.
We're able to work with the Forest Service to really improve habitat. The goal of both the Mule Deer Foundation and the National Forest is to improve wildlife habitat across all national forests. So these projects help us improve habitat for mule deer, for elk, for all kinds of migratory birds and other animals that are in the forest. And so the partnership together allows us really to do more than we could do as each individual agency.
The Division of Wildlife understands that this project may cause a temporary inconvenience for hunters while the actual work is going on, but the forest is going to respond with an increased understory that provides more food for mule deer, elk, moose, bighorn sheep, and that increased food source will draw animals in the future. So as long as we can deal with this temporary inconvenience in the future and for many years to come, this will be a draw to wildlife in the area.
This is a long-term project to make it happen. There's a lot of information that we can provide, so if you call the Evanston Mountain View Ranger District office, we can get you in touch with somebody that can give you more information on it.
My name is Miles Moretti. I'm President and CEO of the Mule Deer Foundation. Our headquarters are in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we're here today on this project to talk about habitat. And the mission of the Mule Deer Foundation is to ensure the conservation of mule deer, black-tailed deer, and their habitat.
Most of the funding for the Burnt Beaver project has came through Utah Watershed Restoration Initiative, of which Mule Deer Foundation plays a part in that. We have a partnership, of course, with the Division of Wildlife Resources.
These two groups are very involved in the benefit for wildlife. So as we work with these groups, we are trying to do the best practices for the land and for the wildlife.
The Watershed Restoration Initiative is a program that's managed by the Division of Wildlife Resources that brings multiple partners in from land management agencies, game management agencies, private landowners, non-government organizations, other state agencies, and allows us to all work together cooperatively to do the best projects on the landscape to benefit wildlife, the watershed, grazers, and anyone that takes part in the outdoors in Utah.
The Mule Deer Foundation has always been a partner with the Forest Service and other federal agencies, state wildlife agencies, because the one thing about habitat is none of us have enough money to carry on these projects by ourselves. And by partnering together, we can do more habitat, get more done for wildlife than we could if we tried to do it as an individual organization.
We act as a true partner in putting the contracts out. We do a lot of the administration work. This all plays a big role in the ability to carry out the project.
Side benefit to these projects is the improvement of water quality and other benefits to the environment. And so this partnership together allows us to do more acreage than we could do alone and actually expand our workload here in the National Forest.
The Division of Wildlife would like to thank our partners such as the Mule Deer Foundation and the Forest Service for coming together to help plan and fund a large-scale restoration project on the forest that will create meaningful benefit for wildlife, the watershed, hunters, and public recreationists that utilize the area for many years to come.
Come one, come all. The 2020 census is here.
Boys and girls in every town, white or brown, I hope you hear my sound. Oh yes, we need you now. This is the time to come on down. Every 10 years we got to take a quick count to who we are. People you know we got to, so we know how to plan tomorrow. The gov got funds to give, but don't know where to give it to. If you don't count your baby, how will we know to build more schools? Take the census, come on down. Tell your friends this 2020 census, now the is out. Take the census, come around. Tell your friends this 2020 census, now the is out. We don't care who you are, citizen or not, it's in our Constitution. There's gonna be a lot of people, man, but never been easier. Do it online or through your phone. Billy's our census taker. Do your part, there's one less on. Take the census, come on down. Tell your friends this 2020 census, now the is out. Take the census, make the future bright for all our kids. Take the census, so we know just how to help us shit. And we know where to build new roads. Put it on a hospital. I'm looking at a brand new road. Do your part, this one last song.